climate change, the rule of law, and food security. The President's participation in the opening of UNGA 77 is important because it marks his first engagement with the United Nations, which the Philippines recognizes as the world's most important multilateral organization.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Danny Laurel. The big story tonight.
President Bongbong Marcos is set to leave for New York on Sunday to attend the 77th session of the UN General Assembly.
This marks Marcos's first UN attendance and also the first time that the debates will be held in person since the pandemic. Here is what we know about the chief executive's upcoming trip. He will be speaking before the UN on day one of the general debate, that is Tuesday, September 20th. The theme of this year's general debate is a watershed moment, transformative solutions to interlocking challenges. Such challenges are expected to be identified by Marcos during his speech. Now, Marcos's address will also cover the country's efforts for economic recovery. The DFA says the president's speech will likewise cover some of his administration's priorities, including climate change, the rule of law, and food security. Now, asked if he will be speaking about issues about the West Philippine Sea, the DFA did not give a definitive answer, saying the speech is usually vetted by the Office of the President.
At the 77th UNGA, Marcos will be meeting more than 150 other heads of states and governments. He will also hold discussions with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. ASEAN Business Council, and the U.S. Philippine Society. The president is also expected to deliver a speech at the Philippine Economic Briefing, which will be attended by institutional investors, senior corporate executives, business analysts, and even academic think tanks and entrepreneurs. Marcos Jr. will also participate in CEO roundtables with the aim of projecting the Philippines as an important emerging economy and investment destination in Asia. The president will likewise be meeting the Filipino community in the United States. To talk more about this with us on President Marcos' first engagement with the United Nations, we have with us on the show One News Defense and Foreign Affairs Editor Manny Mogato. He's here with us in the studio. Manny, welcome to the big story.
Welcome. Good evening, Robbie and Danny.
So, Manny, I mean, let's set the table here. What does the president? What's the minimum and the maximum they think that the president hopes to achieve with this trip to the UN?
Well, this trip is a working visit of the president. This is not a state visit, no. So President Marcos Jr. Hopefully will invite investors to the country, and hopefully he gets some pledges from American investors, especially in the agro-industrial industry, because he also heads the Department of Agriculture. I think for one, the Philippine Embassy in the US is arranging some talks with 6 to 8 foreign heads of state and government. 2 of them are from Malaysia and Japan. So hopefully he can invite investments to our country. And there's also some talk in the in the Philippine Embassy in Washington that there are arrangements to talk with U.S. administration official, specifically John Kerry, the former Secretary of State, who is now the Special Envoy for Climate Change. Because John Kerry has offered the Philippines financing for some energy projects, clean energy. And among these projects are the small modular reactors. These are very small nuclear reactors, the size of a 10-wheeler truck. So you can move them around. No? So these are very important for islands that have no grid to Luzon. No? So I hope that the meeting will push through, because it's still uncertain whether the meeting between the President and John Kerry will push through. I think a meeting with President Biden is out of the question, because he will be in London for the Queen's funeral. And the arrangement for these talks are not done overnight. It takes months to prepare for this meeting. So John Kerry is still hopeful, but Joe Biden is out of the question.
Manny, you mentioned already the agenda, so it seems like it's a given that all of this will be taking place. But can we first backtrack and talk about the elephant in the room, which is this $353 million contempt order on the president as the son, of course, of Ferdinand Marcos? How is this going to impact his travel there? Are there limits to what can be achieved?
I believe that the U.S. State Department has already assured President Marcos that he will not be arrested when he sets foot on the U.S. soil, because it will be a big embarrassment, especially to the U.S. administration, if a head of state is arrested in its soil. So I'm sure that this has been planned out earlier, so it will be a smooth travel for the president. But remember that in the last administration, President Duterte did not even go to the U.S. So this is a big statement, no? Especially if President Marcos is going to the U.S. ahead of his visit to other countries like China. No? Of course, the ASEAN is a given because we are a member of ASEAN countries. But going to the U.S. is a big statement because it solidifies our relation with our #1 treaty ally and our #1 source of defense equipment.
Yeah, but to that point, Manny, you mentioned our treaty and our alliance with the United States, long-standing relationship. You also mentioned China. Do you actually expect the president to bring up China?
Well, I don't know, but in the UN, when the DFA mentioned the rule of law as one of his key topics for the speech, he is actually pointing at the 2016 Hague ruling, the arbitration ruling. So he might invoke the ruling and ask for support from the UN General Assembly to pressure China to comply with the ruling, because China has been ignoring the ruling for 6 years. So it's about time that we call on the UN for support.
Okay. And finally, Manny, before we let you go, human rights issues. How should the president be addressing this in front of the UN, especially after we've seen the issues with the previous administration? How different will he be addressing this compared to President Duterte?
Well, I still don't know, because in the speeches of the president in the past, especially on his inauguration and in his SONA, there were no mentions of human rights. So I think he will still avoid these issues. Although I heard that some Filipinos are planning protest action in New York, led by Bayan in the U.S. So there will be a big rally against President Marcos in maybe outside the UN compound. But I'm not sure if the rule of law, which the DFA is saying, will touch on human rights.
Okay, so keeping our eyes peeled for that. Thank you so much for setting our expectations there. One News Defense and Foreign Affairs Editor Manny Mogato.
Thank you.
Now in other news, the LTFRB has approved the fare increase request for jeepneys, buses, taxis, and TNVS. Minimum fare will be raised to 12 pesos for traditional jeepneys, while that of modern jeepneys will now become 14 pesos. Buses likewise saw an increase in its fares. Minimum rate for ordinary buses will now be 13 pesos, while that of aircon buses will now be 15 pesos. The LTFRB also approved a 5 peso flag down rate hike for taxis and TNVs. The agency acknowledged the need for a fare increase after a continuous increase of oil prices and after consulting with NEDA and the Department of Energy. The 20% discount for senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and students will still be effective. Now, after the break, we will talk more about the Maguindanao plebiscite, which will determine whether the province will be divided into 2 separate provinces. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
It's by 550 basis points. You heard that right. That's 5.5 percentage points, taking it the benchmark to 75%, all in a bit to prop up the currency and curb inflation. The move coming a day after consumer prices jumped nearly 79% year on year in August, the fastest pace in 30 years. Economists expecting Argentina's inflation to get even worse, accelerating to 95% by the end of the year. We are looking at a new report from the World Bank saying that the global economy may face a recession in 2023 due to an aggressive wave of policy tightening, which could prove inadequate to temper inflation. The study showing that investors expect central banks to raise global policy rates to almost 4% next year. It called on policymakers to fight inflation by boosting production instead of reducing consumption. Germany is said to be in advanced talks to take over Uniper and two other large gas importers. Of course, this is all designed to avoid the collapse of its energy market. Sources saying that state ownership of Uniper, VNG, and securing energy for Europe are the main solutions under discussion. We're told that Germany is considering buying Fortum's controlling stake in Uniper for a nominal price and injecting billions of euros into the company through a capital increase. And to sport. There we go. Tennis star Roger Federer retiring, the 20-time Grand Slam winner, making the announcement on Twitter. The 41-year-old has not competed since Wimbledon in July of 2021. He's faced a series of knee operations and others. Federer is saying that he'll play more tennis in the future, but next week's Laver Cup in London will be his last competitive tournament. All of this coming just days after Serena Williams ended her career at the US Open. And that's the end of an era, and that's the first word headline.
This is AP News Minute. President Joe Biden congratulated business and union representatives for reaching a tentative agreement to avert a nationwide rail strike. The deal came after a marathon 20-hour bargaining session and just one day before a threatened walkout. Missile strikes damaged a dam near President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown in central Ukraine, causing some flooding. Zelensky says the only way to guarantee the security of his country's people is to close the sky with Western-supplied air defense.
Metro Manila's COVID-19 risk classification is now back to moderate, as the capital region's positivity rate increases 16.4%. 11 out of 17 NCR LGUs are also at moderate risk, while 6 areas posted an increase in hospital admissions for the virus. Only the cities of Pasig and Muntinlupa saw an increase in ICU admissions. Despite these, the region's hospital utilization rate remains to be at low risk. However, the health department said the increase in infections in NCR still can't be attributed to the East face mask rule in outdoor and non-crowded areas. The DOH says it may recommend the reimposition of the outdoor face mask mandate when the need arises. Meanwhile, the DOH said it is still not certain if there is no local transmission of monkeypox in the country.
Alam natin na hindi naman natin natetest lahat. Alam natin na hindi lahat ng may simptomas kung sakasakali ay nakakapagpatest o pumupunta sa kanilang mga doktor para magpakonsulta.
Vergeire assured the DOH is ready to detect, treat, and prevent the further transmission of monkeypox in the country. To date, the Philippines has 4 monkeypox cases. The DOH said the third patient has fully recovered after completing isolation last September 8. The case's 17 close contacts have also finished isolation and were discharged with no symptoms. Patient number 4, on the other hand, was discharged from the hospital last September 15 and is currently under home isolation. 19 of the case's 20 close contacts have also finished their quarantine periods and have remained asymptomatic. For News 5, JC Cosigo, We Are One News.
The Commission on Elections has assured the public that is all systems go for the holding of the plebiscite in Maguindanao on Saturday. Mon Gualvez is joining us live to give us the details. Mon, how are the preparations for the plebiscite?
Robbie, the plebiscite tomorrow follows the passage of Republic Act 11550 a year ago, which provides for the division of the provinces of Maguindanao into two separate provinces that will be named Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur. The rationale behind the proposal is that it's becoming extremely hard for some people in Maguindanao to avail to their provincial government's basic services. As shared to us by Vice Governor Aini Sinsuat, those from the 1st District in particular find it hard to go to their capital, which is Buluan, which is located in the 2nd District. Also, to be exact, the province of Maguindanao encompasses 36 municipalities and more than 500 barangays. That is why the proponents of RA 11550 thought it would be more efficient if the rationale, or if the province rather, would be divided into two smaller and more manageable units. But of course, the people of Maguindanao would have to put their stamp of approval to this, thus the conduct of the plebiscite tomorrow to be headed by the Commission on Elections, or COMELEC. And as of now, all the paraphernalia and all the things that will be used for the plebiscite are in place in all the separate, or in all the municipalities of Maguindanao. Robbie.
Mon, you talked about the people of Maguindanao, of course, the ultimate stakeholders. Give us a sense of their emotion, their level of interest. How many people do we actually expect to vote tomorrow?
We are expecting around 818,790 who are registered voters here in Maguindanao. And if you're going to ask me what is the sentiment of Maguindanaoans at the moment, personally, it looks like it's going to be a yes, because aside from the yes banners that we've seen left and right in almost every town here in Maguindanao, we also talked to some residents, influential families, even the BARM government or the Bangsamoro government, and men on the street asking them about if they are in favor or not, and they all answer they are in favor because, as they've said, it's the most practical means of ensuring delivery of basic services that would be more accessible to both the side of the provincial government and the side of the residents. But a few groups actually voiced their concern in the seeming lack of proper information dissemination. We got hold of a statement by the Interfaith Movement for Peaceful and Clean Elections, or IM for Peace, calling for the plebiscite to be postponed for up to more than 2 months. That's because, as they've said, while yes banners are aplenty, they can't remember a time when there was actually an information drive from either the provincial government or from the COMELEC. But we also asked this one to the COMELEC, but they have no answers yet for this issue. But as far as they're concerned, the plebiscite will push through tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there were more than 800,000 who are expected to vote, as I've mentioned a while back. Robbie.
What happens, as you mentioned, the expectation is yes to the split. How soon can this be enforced?
Once the plebiscite closes tomorrow at 3 p.m., the canvassing will start. No, so after that, immediately, if the yes or no vote wins, then it will be declared. Actually, right now, some of the officials of COMELEC National are also here in Maguindanao, and they are talking about the security preparations for what will happen tomorrow in the plebiscite. And they are actually getting ready as well for the announcement if the province will totally be splitted into two. Again, namely Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur. And the preparation for the new provinces, if the yes vote wins, will be around a month or two. Danny.
Mon, final question lang. We all know that politics in the Philippines ultimately go down not just to the voters, but also, frankly, the powers at the local level. You mentioned influential families. Could you give us a rundown of when you mention influential families or powers in Maguindanao, whether in the north or the south? Maybe just remind us of some names that are influential and powerful, then that may also be behind either side of this campaign.
Well, Robbie, they've mentioned to us, actually, we've talked to some provincial leaders of Maguindanao, and they've mentioned that they actually formed a family alliance composes of the Ampatuans, the Mangudadatus, the Sinsuats, the Masturas, and other families who are actually influential, not only here in the province, but actually we are being heard of, no, even in Manila or even other places, because their influence actually is seemingly encompassing other provinces as well. But that, if we're going to mention some names, again, those who are in position right now who actually created that's what we call family alliance, Robbie.
Maraming salamat, Mon Gualvez. And after another break, we will be speaking with singer-songwriter Ice Seguerra about his upcoming 35th anniversary concert, as well as his stint in directing the first season of Drag Race Philippines. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
My backpack and my jewel.
If you weren't doing it, you were a freak. I seemed cooler, more mature because I did it.
I started vaping and juuling when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. All my friends were doing it. It was on social media everywhere, basically.
Well, I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and I remember seeing this and being like, oh my God, why do you have that at school? As time went by, I became more normalized to it.
My friend, she was like sucking on what I thought was a USB, and she was like, oh, it's like flavored water vapor. It's like so good. You have to try this. You have to try this. And she pulls it out, and that was the first time I've ever seen a juul before.
We knew it was like a form of smoking. More and more kids started doing it, and then it was just like widely accepted at that point.
And someone from my first period, and then someone in my second, third, every single period just started popping up with juuls.
Nobody knew what it was. Not one person knew what it was.
Parenting alert this morning.
The FDA warning about
vaping in the news.
Teen vaping epidemic. Vaping throughout the night.
Everything quickly became not enough. I had to keep hitting it because I'd built so much resistance up to it. I was so addicted that I couldn't quit, so I asked my other friend to buy me cigarettes.
And I got sucked into the same trap as the rest of my classmates. So about 2 months ago, I woke up feeling pain on the right side of my chest.
So I started having really bad heart palpitations, and I couldn't breathe.
We ended up going to an urgent care. I was admitted, and they told me that they thought I had a form of like a diffused lipoid pneumonia.
It felt like I was having a heart attack. A team of surgeons just rushed into the room. One grabs my arm, the other one puts an oxygen mask on my face. Immediately, I saw the lead surgeon above me, just saying, your lung has collapsed and we have to rush you into surgery this moment. They had to put...
For the big story in sports, it was all praises for Filipina tennis star Alex Eala after she was greeted on her title victory by 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal. But sad news broke out in tennis as Roger Federer announced his retirement from the sport. Marty Bautista with the details.
Days after winning the 2022 US Open girls singles crown, Filipina tennis star Alex Eala was greeted by 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal. Nadal on social media commended Eala for the feat, advising her to keep up the good work.
I'm super happy about Rafa, of course, greeting me on Instagram. You know, it's not an everyday thing that happens. So super blessed.
Eala is a scholar in the Mallorca-based Rafa Nadal Academy, where she learned the champion mentality of Nadal 4 years back.
It's a family. And of course, from Rafa, you see him almost every day when he's in Mallorca training, and his work ethic. And there's so many things that you can absorb and learn. And it's definitely been a huge part of my development as a player.
Being the first Pinoy winning the US Open girls singles, huge expectations are now set for the 17-year-old tennis star. Alex, though, says she welcomes this.
I have my own personal goals, and I know that it's not always going to go the way that I want it. And, it doesn't have to go the way that others want it to go. I think I've learned from a young age how to block out noise, unnecessary noise.
For now, Alex is based in California, where she plans to continue her training and exercises. Up next for her will be to compete in professional tournaments. But Eala did say that she misses visiting the country.
I would love to go home. I would really love to go home. But unfortunately, it's not so easy to schedule that.
But as Alex's stock rises in the world of tennis, one of the sport's greatest athletes has announced his retirement. Roger Federer, regarded by many as the greatest male player to wield a tennis racket, is set to retire after next week's Laver Cup in London. A knee injury has kept Federer out for most tournaments, and although many still hoped he could come back for one last golden farewell, he said his age had finally caught up with him. After the Laver Cup, the 41-year-old Federer will retire with 20 Grand Slam single titles under his belt and the memory of changing the sports forever. For News 5, Marty Bautista, We Are One News.
Singer-songwriter Ice Seguerra is celebrating 35 years in showbiz with an anniversary concert set next month. He is joining us tonight via Zoom. Good evening, Ice, and welcome to The Big Story. Now, what to expect in your 35th anniversary concert without spoiling it, of course? Give us some of the details to exciting things to expect.
All right. Syempre, it's basically my journey. Becoming Ice is my journey, from the beginning to where I'm at now. It's a plethora of many challenges and beautiful things that happened, and through songs, basically, I'll be telling that story.
Ice, Danny is not. I am old enough to remember
of course I
year
remember
one. Pagka sa'yo binanggit, pagka sa'yo pinaalala, 35 years, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Little Miss Philippines, definitely. Kasi that's how it all started. Before everything else, I was a beauty queen.
No, and with that, I'll use that to segue. Drag Race Philippines, you're directing Drag Race Philippines. You talked about this. It's not just a competition. It is a journey. It is about the journey of different people. What does your personal journey bring to this show as well?
Siguro, my personal journey, siguro, it's my first time as well to do a reality show, based program, and it's a journey for me as well in terms of learning on the job and really making sure that I'll be able to tell the story of these amazing queens. Kasi, even though we see them strut sa main stage runway, if you don't know the story, you won't, wala kang hawakan eh. So I'm just happy that so far we're able to tell that. Yeah.
How has the reception been, especially for the Philippine audience here? And are you satisfied? Are you surprised? And how much more, do you want to give to the audience? What's your bigger objective here?
Right now, I'm not really surprised because I know that Drag Race, the franchise, mismo, has a lot of following in the Philippines. Pero siguro my biggest joy right now, or seeing tweets from my fellow LGBTQ people na, parang their parents are suddenly interested because they enjoy watching the queens. These are parents na normally you can't really share, your life about because you're LGBT. But now they're actually asking. They want to know about the show, and knowing the show means learning about the community as well. So parang I see this show as not just an entertainment for the Filipinos, but actually it's like a stepping stone na mabukas natin yung diskusyon ng LGBT sa mas nakararami, and I'm happy that I'm part of it.
And of course, there's might be a next season. Are you open to directing season 2? How has the experience been different from being on cam to being behind the lens?
Well, of course, this one has more responsibility. You're taking care of a lot of people. Because if you're on cam, ikaw yung entertainer, ikaw yung nagpe-perform, you really have to basically take care of yourself on whatever it is you're going to do on stage. But this one, you have to take care of everyone. But it's so fulfilling. Iba yung fulfillment that I'm getting every time I see the queens, parang get so much, good reviews. Iba rin yung pakiramdam if ikaw yung nasa likod ng camera, and I'm actually liking it. So hopefully, if there is a season 2, if they want me, then I would gladly do it again.
There you go. So hoping for season 2, of course. And again, congratulations on 35 years in show business. Looking forward to that concert next month. Thank you so much for joining us on The Big Story, Ice Seguerra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Maraming salamat. And that is The Big Story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The Big Story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. 100 days before Christmas, Robbie. Nako.
Okay.
Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.